Hello and welcome to It's a Numbers Game. I'm Adam Morris, joined by my co-host Daniel Welling, and we are the founders of MSP Finance Team, the team that helps MSP owners globally to get happier and wealthier. Today, we're sitting down with Phil McGowan, Sales Engineering Team Lead for EMEA at Huntress. And if you haven't heard of Huntress, they are a managed cybersecurity platform built for MSPs. Over the next half hour, you'll learn where MDR, EDR, ITDR, and SIEM actually fit in an MSP security stack, and how to explain the difference to clients without the alphabet soup, how attackers really breach Microsoft 365, and practical steps to detect and contain business email compromised with managed ITDR, and how to show clear security value to customers using 24/7 human-led response without drowning your engineers in noisy alerts. Let's jump in.
Phil, hello. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Dan. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And as we were discussing it in the green room a short moment ago, this actually follows on from Nick O'Donovan being on the show probably about 6 months or so ago now. And we definitely felt that there were lots of really interesting things that Huntress were doing. And we definitely needed a follow-up to really get into the weeds, both technically and commercially, to help our MSP listeners sort of unbundle this whole security topic. And as we talked about before, we are enjoying the benefit of the NFR Neighborhood Watch program. So Adam and I, at the same time, learning about how Huntress works and how Huntress is supporting the MSP Finance Team. So we've got a little bit of understanding, but Adam and I definitely need your help today, Phil, to help unpack this topic. So maybe where to begin? If you were talking about this to a new MSP, how would you start the conversation?
Interesting question. We'd probably start the conversation by understanding what the managed service provider currently does in terms of the security offering they will already have in place for their customers and any kind of challenges they're facing around that. And the challenges will vary from MSP to MSP. It might be the unfortunate situation where they've experienced a breach, a cybersecurity incident for one of their customers. Unfortunately, that does happen, not only to the very large guys like Marks and Spencers and Harrods, but it also happens to the smaller customers that an MSP might support. So understand, have there been any kind of recent breaches? That certainly is a challenge that we maybe need to look at through the lens of, is there something we can do differently with that MSP to prevent a reoccurrence? So that comes down to mitigating risk. But we'll also explore how easy the kind of existing cybersecurity offerings that MSP sells on to their end customer are for them to consume. So is it affordable within the customer's budget? And also from an operational perspective, how much time and resource does it take from the MSP to ultimately deliver the service to the end customer? So these are all interesting things we can explore as we kind of open-mindedly ask the question first to the MSP, why are we actually having this conversation?
Right. Okay. And jokingly, I often talk about this whole sort of security topic as super antivirus, or even super antivirus as it has become. But I'm wrong on all counts when I talk about Huntress, because you don't actually do antivirus, correct?
That's absolutely correct. Yeah. So I think our founders looked at the cybersecurity landscape and saw there's something like 80 or so antivirus products out there, and the world probably didn't need an 81st antivirus. So we decided to do something a little bit different. The product category, I guess we would fall into on the endpoint. So if we were protecting a workstation or a server, would be EDR, endpoint detection and response, but we actually offer managed endpoint detection and response. So what we're really keen to introduce for our MSP partners and ultimately for their end customers is the Huntress Humans, we call them. That's our 24/7 SOC that's included with that Huntress EDR. That's true as well for our other products, right? So that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to get the best security talent available to businesses of all sizes. So partnerships with MSPs are really crucial to that, because MSPs will work with businesses of all sizes.
Just on EDR, I was explaining earlier, Phil, wasn't I, that I used to know this stuff and now I don't. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But it does raise a question here, an interesting question. Your clients, MSPs, have to sell this to business owners, small business owners. They don't have a clue about this stuff. They don't know what EDR is, right? They kind of knew what AV is. So they kind of get their head around that. Now these guys are out there trying to sell EDR. So give me a best pitch. What would you say to MSP owners out there right now? How should they explain what EDR is, simplify it into business language so that a double glazing company out there will buy it from them?
Yeah, sure. So I wouldn't say it's a pitch so much as education, as you rightly say, Adam. The business owner for a small or medium-sized business may not understand the terms we would use when we talk about EDR. So the way we would break it down is a very simple framework called the NIST Cybersecurity framework, which has these different kind of categories that any sort of product could ultimately fall into. So you start off with identify, and then you move to protect, detect, respond, and recover. And a way to explain those different stages to a business owner would be, if you think about a house, right? And you want
I did exactly this, but keep going. I did exactly this, but keep going, because it's a really good example. And then I'm really interested in the EDR, where that bit slots into each of those 5
steps. Absolutely. And the key point, Adam, is it actually doesn't slot into all of those 5, right? So if you think about protecting a house, right, identify, first of all, is where are the entry points for, in this case, a burglar, right? So it's going to be the windows, it's going to be the doors. And then you move on to protect, which is how do I actually secure those, right? So those would be your locks on the windows and the doors, very simply. As we move on to detect, this is, has something gone wrong, right? Has the burglar got inside the house? So maybe you need motion sensors, or you need cameras that are pointed inside your home to detect that. You then move on to respond, which is calling the police. It's some kind of burglar alarm. And recover is then, well, we work with insurance. We're trying to recover stolen goods. It actually works in very much the same way for a digital asset. So let's say you have a computer or an MSP managing many computers, many different cloud accounts, right? They have to identify that digital attack surface. They have to protect it. And this is where antivirus, I think it was mentioned earlier on, fits in, because that's kind of like the lock on the door or the bouncer on the door, whatever analogy you want to use. And that AV, that antivirus, is looking for the already known bad threats that it can very simply just block from entering the building. Apologies if I'm mixing my analogies here. Then when it comes to detect, that's where EDR really shines, because endpoint detection and response will be looking at, well, what's actually running on the computer, or what's happening inside that Microsoft 365 account. And does what's happening differ from the kind of normal user activity? Is there something there which suggests an attacker has a level of access to that device or to that cloud account? And then we can move on to respond, something that EDR does for partners as well, where we can clean that up, right? So maybe we have to delete things that are malware, kill certain processes, and then recover. That's also an area that would be technically outside of the Huntress product set, because at that point you're looking at your backup technology, right? You're recovering data. So unfortunately, I probably fell into the trap of mentioning a few products along the way there, but it helps people conceptualize something.
We'll come back to the podcast in a minute, but first, I just want to introduce you to the mentoring service from MSP Finance Team. How long will you carry on struggling on your own, juggling cash flow, feeling like you're barely making ends meet, when the very reason you started your MSP was not just to help others master technology, but also to secure your own financial future? Or perhaps you've grown your MSP to a good size and are looking to prepare for an optimal sale or acquisition, but have never done it before. We've walked in your shoes. We're ex-MSP owners and have built our businesses from startup to exit, and know exactly how it feels to be constantly firefighting or struggling to grow profit. And that's why our mentoring, or call it coaching if you prefer, exists to help you achieve the rewards you set out to achieve in the first place. More profit, more time, and the freedom to focus on what truly matters. So you're probably asking, why should we work with you? Well, we deliver results. Here are just 2 examples. A 10 million MSP with a 7-strong leadership team, but lackluster results. Within just 2 quarters of working with us, their profits began to climb. At the end of year 1, their profits will have jumped from 300K to 1.3 million. But we're not that big, I hear you say. Well, we work with smaller MSPs as well. A 400K MSP was suffering a 10% loss before we engaged with them, and were struggling to move forward for years. Again, within a 12-month period, we've turned that business around. They've got new clients, they've got their mojo back, and they made a 10% profit this year. If you'd like results like this, book a free consultation now at mspfinanceteam.com, and we'll discuss a burning issue that's been holding you back and give you several key actions to take away and implement completely free of charge with no further obligations. Don't settle for less. Make your MSP everything you dreamed it to be. Yeah, that's really good. And we, as I said, we use that model ourselves in my own MSP. Worked really well. Was a really useful way just to explain what is a complex subject area. But just elaborate. Or if I was this double glazing business, I might come back to you and say, hang on a minute, I'm buying extra for detection and response. Well, I already get response from you, so why am I buying extra for response? What's better about this response? What would your answer be to that?
Yeah, so often the answer revolves around the 24/7 nature of the service, right? Is the managed service provider themselves in a position to offer a 24/7 service to their end customer? Because security is absolutely a 24/7 sport, right? You could be attacked at 2 a.m. just the same way you could be attacked at during the business hours. So Huntress provides a 24/7 SOC with every single Huntress product. There's no way for you to buy a Huntress product without the Huntress 24/7 SOC being part of the solution that you're buying. So that allows our partners to offer that service to their end customer. And that may be the answer to the question that comes then from the customer's business owner.
Yeah, indeed, I like that a lot. And of course, you would also say, well, hang on a minute, there's hundreds of highly technical wizards following the sun now, being alerted to anything that's on any of your endpoints, and they will jump on this, any time of the day. I think it's just really important to be clear on what effectively the benefits are of all these things, and because actually a lot of the owners out there, clients out there, just going, "What? I'm already paying for this." I'm like, "What?" They're already looking at their invoices. So that kind of real clarity of differences I think, is vital.
That's fair. And I think that the other approach we can take here is offering a trial, right? We can offer a Huntress trial, of course, being Huntress, but MSPs may find other products they're interested in will also allow for trials. That way, the technology can be put into the environment for a period to see what value does it actually provide during that trial period. Because a lot of people are quite rightly minded to see, well, the kind of proof's in the pudding. A lot of MSPs think like that, as well as the business owner themselves that may be challenging the monthly bill they're getting from the MSP. So they will rightly turn around and say, I already have security tools in place. I already pay for service X, Y, and Z. Why would I pay for this extra service? If we can run a trial, or we can uncover some threats that maybe were not stopped with the tools that were already in place, then that's one of the best kind of pieces of evidence you would get for actually then taking that service on as a subscription.
I like it. Can it backfire though, where it returns nothing, and so you go, yeah, there's no value in having this?
We wouldn't necessarily consider that backfiring, but I suppose there's different ways to look at that scenario.
You could, I guess.
We would say that's good news in the sense that if you have the right security posture right in your environment, it's very feasible that we might have a trial that's exceedingly quiet, or there may be no findings at all during that trial period. We're not afraid for that to happen because in many respects that is good news. If we go back to that house analogy, we are the alarm system when somebody's got inside the house. So you don't want those alarms to be going off all of the time. If they are going off all the time, then frankly, you're probably doing something wrong in terms of the way you're kind of configuring your devices or configuring your accounts, or even with maybe some of the preventative security controls like email filtering or other controls that you have in place probably aren't doing their job correctly. So I guess the way we as Huntress would kind of counter it would be, well, let's cast the net for an MSP as wide as we can, right? We make it very simple to install Huntress technology. We're really keen to do these trials, and they're full featured. So why not install to every single customer you have, to all of your managed endpoints, your managed identities, and that way it just increases the chance that we'll get some data back. That, again, hopefully is not the most high or critical severity threat, but it might be a more low severity threat. It might be the remnant of a previous attack that we can find. So it's still a valuable security audit, even if you don't have any kind of blaring red sirens, we would still consider it a valuable exercise.
And that then leads me on to perhaps the commercial approach to this, insofar as would we typically advocate that this is an up or an additional sell in addition to an MSP's baseline service, so that therefore the implementation of it to prove that there are things to resolve then leads the MSP to charging the client for the service? Or would this normally be for the MSP to confirm that they see the value in it, and then the MSP then somehow integrates, bundles this into their overall stack and proposition? What's your experience there?
I think it's more common for it to be the latter, where the MSP will first perhaps do a trial with a technology like Huntress and get to understand the value they believe in that technology provides as an MSP. And then they're in a position to say, well, let's build this into our kind of standard bundles, into our standard stack, and have it be that baseline of security for our customers, rather than leaving it out there as an optional add-on, because it's fairly common for customers to say no to those add-ons. And when it comes to something like security, you don't really want to be leaving things to chance. So coming back to that 24/7 security operations center that comes with a technology like Huntress, if the MSP cannot provide that themselves, then they have to partner with a vendor, right, in order to provide that to their customers. And most MSPs we speak to would agree that is essential, to make sure that the customer is secure. So you don't just have software that's generating alerts, but you actually have human beings on the other side that can look at, interpret an alert, and do an investigation and respond. All of that can happen 24/7. So yeah, we would encourage it to be a baseline. Frankly, we try to have that opinion when we speak to our partners or potential partners. We believe it should be a baseline, and if there are challenges to that, then we can kind of work through the challenges. So the challenge could be maybe something like affordability. How do I secure the budget from my customer? And that's something that then we can help our partners with.
Can I just then, because I think this is kind of where we were going at the start, really, and putting this together. What would be your advice out there then for MSPs looking at their stack of products, looking to simplify what they sell and how they sell it? So let's say we've got a bronze, silver, gold type of approach. What would be in the bronze, right? What would be in an additional piece in the silver and an additional again in the gold, in your view?
That varies from MSP to MSP. It's not unheard of for the bronze, if you like, the entry-level package, to not include EDR, but that would typically be for perhaps a smaller or perhaps less mature MSP in terms of their security offering. So what we are seeing is the EDR technology is moving to be a true baseline then across all three of those kind of offerings the MSP might put in front of the customer. But you might find that things like, I don't know whether it's DNS filtering or web filtering, those are something that's introduced as you step up from the bronze to silver or the gold. And you might find as well that depending on the partnerships the MSP has to deliver the 24/7 service, that they actually keep the 24/7 offering behind a silver or a gold package rather than that be entry level. Because although I've kind of come on here today and said, very confidently, Huntress has a 24/7 SOC, we still partner with MSPs, of course, right? So we will send an instant report to an MSP rather than directly communicating with an end customer. So there's a little bit of almost devil in the detail of that, where the MSP still needs to be working with us to provide the service to the end customer. So they need to be confident they can deliver that service.
If I did have a co-managed MSP client, though, for example, would I be able to request or allow you to communicate with the end user directly?
There are ways that can be set up, yes. So you're able to define under your account in your Huntress portal separate organizations. So we can look at communication options specific to an organization. But ultimately, we provide very favorable MSP pricing because we expect it to be that partnership between Huntress and the MSP. So I'll give you an example. We might uncover an incident of Microsoft 365 account takeover, right? Which is a pretty serious thing, right? Maybe we found an inbox rule was put in place that was maybe forwarding emails that were payment related to an external domain. Huntress can go ahead and disable, we can even delete that inbox rule, but those would be assisted or active remediations that Huntress does for the partner. But there may be in the remediation plan we produce a series of manual remediations. So Huntress cannot reset the credentials. Rotating the credentials is clearly key if an account has been taken over. Huntress would not be, at least of our existing technology, and enforcing multi-factor authentication. So we will still provide to our partner a remediation plan that includes not only the bits that we've done, either with their approval or just we've gone away and done as active remediation, but any outstanding tasks for the cleanup. So that's where we say it's a partnership to provide the service. So yes, if appropriate, that could be delegated, if you like, to a co-managed client, but it wouldn't be appropriate for all of the MSP's clients.
Got it. Okay. And I guess while we're on the commercial topic, don't want to hold you to anything that you don't want to, that's not appropriate to divulge. But I recall when the sort of SOC, the availability of a SOC to the MSP stage of business first came about, it was eye-wateringly expensive. And, we're talking £40-50 a month for a device. And of course, at the time, there were plenty of MSPs, well, today, that don't even charge that for their base service, let alone just for a SOC service. So I'm guessing over the last 5 years or so, that price point has come down. And that improvement in affordability, I don't know, what can you talk us around that to sort of help us build this picture of how to pitch it to the end client?
So affordability, I think, traditionally has been a real challenge for small and medium-sized businesses to take advantage of the security controls that are available to the enterprise, right? So a 24/7 security operations center would definitely fall under that. Even the kind of software aspects of EDR technology, in some cases, would fall under that. And technologies like SIEM, which is something else that Huntress provides, that, again, traditionally has been an enterprise tool due to the cost, right? The cost not only of procuring the service, but also the cost to really take advantage of the service for any kind of manpower that's required on the side of the customer. So what we've tried to do with Huntress is provide those enterprise-grade tools for a much wider audience. So make the technology available to the 99% of businesses that, by definition, are not in that 1% of Fortune 100. And make sure they can afford the tool. So we've had to come up with a price point that is palatable for those businesses, right? And particularly as well, working as closely as we do with MSPs, provide it at a cost to the MSP that allows the MSP to make a good bit of margin. So we'll often find we are a third or a quarter of the price of some of our competitors, where our competitors have actually started out maybe more so targeting those enterprise customers. That's really not where Huntress started as an organization. We wanted to democratize these technologies.
Democratize was exactly the word I was thinking of as you were describing it. So, and so my end user, my double glazing end user client, as Adam postured earlier, they're probably going to ask the question, well, Daniel, you're telling me that if I was an enterprise, I could be paying, hundreds of pounds an endpoint a month for a SOC, and how are you able to do it for tens of pounds? Like, what's different? It's great that it's not as expensive, but why is it? Why does a larger company pay so much more for this than perhaps a smaller business?
Sometimes it's the price that vendors can get away with selling to enterprise customers. Frankly, having worked with different technologies in my career that were sold to enterprises, your likes of kind of banks, for example, and government organizations. So sometimes the list price you will get from those vendors is something that the vendor could actually take probably 96, 97% off as a discount as part of the sales process. So the starting point for vendors that sell to enterprise is often very different to the starting point that Huntress would take, because we're actually advertising that we have a technology. We're aiming at businesses of all sizes. So we want your even very small MSPs, your kind of one-man bands, to be able to consume, as well as the larger players in the market. So yeah, so that's definitely part of it. And then we've also had to carefully kind of think through how we design our solution, right? So we do a lot of our technology stack is really key to being able to control this, right? So we have to look at our detection engineering, right? And what are we actually bubbling up to our SOC to do an investigation on? Because we want that to be really finely tuned so that we're getting the most high fidelity signals that are from real threats in front of our SOC analysts, so they can quite quickly investigate that, confirm it as a threat, and then go on to the response element, where of course we're communicating with our partner with an incident report and going through the remediation. So we have an 8-minute mean time to response, and that comes from really honing what we do with the detection. So where we own the technology stack end to end, we have our own agent software we install, we run our own detection logic against Microsoft 365 and firewalls, etc. This allows us, and also owning's the wrong word, but having a SOC in place that is a Huntress SOC, this allows us to be in control of essentially the cost of the solution to us, so that we can then offer it at an affordable price point for our partners.
And those early tools, of course, the other issue was there was just so much noise and so many false positives or topics to investigate that you'd never find the needle in the haystack that was the genuine thing that needed action and activity. So it sounds like there's an improved efficiency that's been achieved, and actually, well, I'm sure very few enterprises will be listening to this podcast episode, so I'm sure all the enterprise vendors are safe with their business model for now. But really interesting to hear how what the genuine difference is. So like I would imagine there'd be some sort of simplification of dumbing down that would be required to achieve the difference in price.
Yeah, I think there are cases where there are bells and whistles that are maybe not there within our technology that would be there for the technologies you might see in the top right of the Gartner Magic Quadrant. For it. What we're really focused on is outcomes. We call it wrecking hackers, right? We want to stop the hackers from doing that criminal activity and causing so much damage to businesses. That's ultimately our mission. So when we build our tool, we're building the features that make a difference to that, to actually stopping the attackers, rather than building this kind of long list of tick box features that might show up in your RFPs, right? Your long kind of questionnaires that come from the procurement that happens for a larger organization. We may be missing some of those bells and whistles, as it were. We will happily kind of stand toe to toe when it comes to actually stopping the attackers. Because ultimately what our tool does is it sends the signals to our security operations center to analyze and investigate. And to your point around false positives, I think that is, in some cases, a real challenge for organizations that consume security tooling. So we track that very closely to make sure we're not kind of spamming alerts to our customers, right? So we have a 0.7% false positive rate. And the way we track that is how often our partners would be approving a remediation plan versus clicking reject and telling us this was a false positive or some kind of false alarm.
If I'm considering your solution stack here with the SOCs that you have in place, do I need to augment my team with some additional skill sets or manpower in order to deploy this and manage and interact with my clients appropriately now that I've got all this increased level of awareness and monitoring going on? Is there more work I've got to do?
No, there'll be no need to hire additional staff or staff with particular skill sets in order to put in place Huntress technology. A lot of our kind of approach is taking that heavy lifting of a security investigation off of the plate of off of a managed service provider, right? So what we then provide as the output here is an incident report that's not full of jargon. It's easy to understand, to say, this is what we've detected, this is what we've done to remediate, and this is anything outstanding to complete that remediation. So the theory, and this is what we see in practice, is even a level 1 junior technician would be able to take that incident report without having any kind of security specialism and understand the lay of the land, right? Understand the status of this incident, and can they bring it through to resolution, which in many cases from a partner's perspective is just clicking resolve against the incident if they're happy with everything that we've already done.
Okay, so I almost feel like we're going to need another episode after this. I feel like, again, we've only touched the surface on this topic, and so much more for Adam and I to, and I'm sure some of our audience to consume and understand. But yeah, it's been very, very interesting listening to you, and I'm sure many people up and down the country will be describing house security in a conversation with their end user client over the coming weeks and months. And well, again, not normally at this time of an episode we offer a shameless plug, but maybe suffice to say, if anyone is listening, has questions, how best to get hold of you with to talk further.
I guess one of the things we'd really point at as a way to get involved with Huntress, and a way that we actually give back to the MSP community, is what we call our Neighborhood Watch program. So any managed service provider, even if they're not currently selling Huntress onto their customers, they're more than welcome to use Huntress tools to protect their own house, that is, to protect their internal environment. So if you're interested in taking advantage of that Neighborhood Watch program and protecting yourself with Huntress, then please just visit our website, huntress.com, and you'll be able to see the details there to take advantage of Neighborhood Watch.
Very good. It's been a pleasure talking to you today, and I certainly feel like I've learned a lot. Adam, any thoughts from you?
No, I mean, just so much to this, isn't there? We could talk about it for hours. And yeah, let's have you back and dig a bit deeper into all this stuff, because what we haven't even touched the sides of where it's going, and where AI's, where does that AI feature in all of this, right? So, what are the conversations that MSP owners need to start thinking about for what they should be, talking about with their clients moving forward? So really good, and definitely be back.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.